Welcome back, everyone. This is Isaac with Nandy's Nerd Media. Back on the couch with another review. Today I'm doing the season 2 finale of Severance. So, for those of you who don't know, Severance is a show on Apple TV Plus starring Adam Scott. And we're going to get into the finale, but there's a lot of spoilers ahead. So, if you haven't seen the episode, go and check it out and then come back here and you'll get my thoughts. But definitely check the episode out. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so first things first. This was a wild episode. So much shit went down. So much crazy stuff happened. We're going to get to it all, but we have to start at the beginning. So we're picking up from the end of episode 9, where we had Mark, his sister Devin, and Cobell, his former manager. They went to the severed cabin where they were trying to make an effort for Mark, his Audi, to be able to talk to his innie. And so this was a really big development because this was the first time you're going to have someone's outie self be able to directly contact their innie self. And the way they actually went about it was pretty clever because they had basically Mark, whenever he walked into the cabin, it operated like the elevator operates, where he would be severed and he would turn into his innie inside the cabin. And then when he walked back out, he would be his outie. And then they gave him a video camera so that he could record messages directly to his innie and outie cells. So basically, it was like they were talking to each other. And so Mark Outie was explaining to his innie, like, hey, my wife, Gemma, she's been kidnapped. I need to try to rescue her and I need your help. And we're going to come up with a plan, but you have to be the one who pulls her out of the building. And so Mark's innie was like, hey, I appreciate you, taking the time to talk to me directly and kind of acknowledge me, but also I have my own life that I've built in here, and I've fallen in love with someone, and I'm scared that if I help you out, then all of us innies are going to disappear because you're basically trying to take down Lumen, and if they get rid of the Sever project, then I just like simply won't exist anymore. So Mark's Audi was like, hey, I understand your concerns, but he was also trying to sell them on reintegration. So he was telling them, hey, I'll reintegrate you into me and we'll be two parts combined into one person again. And Mark's Innie was just like very skeptical. He was like, I'm calling bullshit. He's just like, I feel like if I help you out, you're going to get what you want, and then I'm just going to be left out in the cold, and basically I'm going to disappear because you're going to have what you want, and you're not going to give a fuck about what happens after that. And so they're kind of going back and forth, and it was honestly like a very compelling scene. I think it was one of Adam Scott's best performances of the season so far. Just seeing him be his Innie and outie self, talking back and forth to each other, the different dynamics between the characters, the different mannerisms. It was really good. It was one of the better scenes of the season so far, and it hit on a lot of what the concerns of the severed procedure are from the show overall, where you have somebody's consciousness being split into two, and you have this question of, are they two people? Are they separate people, separate entities sharing the same bodies? Are they the same person? Because the way Mark's Innie is talking, he feels like he's his own separate entity, his own separate person. And he feels like Mark Audi shouldn't have priority over their lives just because he's the one who initiated the process. So I felt like that was a very compelling scene. It was one of the best acted scenes from Adam Scott of the season, and it got the show all to like a very interesting start. Okay, so the next scene, we open up on the severed floor, and Mark's Annie is getting off the elevator, and we open up on this shot of this painting that was very wild. It's Mark at the center, and then there's all of the other severed floor employees surrounding him. And this is very similar to the other paintings that we saw earlier in the season, and it's almost religious looking and very creepy, and you could tell that Mark is weirded out, and he finally makes his way to his desk, and Heliar is there, and he's filling her in on the situation. And it feels like she's trying to convince him, like, hey, you should listen to your Audi, and maybe you should try to help Gemma out, and you could tell that Mark is still conflicted because obviously he's in love with Helly R and he doesn't want to lose her, but she's telling him like, "Hey, we need to take down Lumen, and what they're doing is bad." And it feels like Helly is doing this not for some altruistic reason, but for her own very selfish purposes. She wants to take down Lumen, and she feels like this is probably the best way, even if she has to sacrifice her relationship with Mark. So they have like a little moment together, and then they kind of decide like, yeah, Mark is going to go ahead and he's going to finish this project, which is Cold Harbor. So that's another one of the interesting things we learned in the first scene at the cabin, where Cobell basically tells Mark what Cold Harbor is, and a lot of people had theorized that he was working on Gemma when he was doing the refining, and that's what Cobell confirmed. She's like, yes, like you're actually working on Gemma, her consciousness, and the files that you were doing are different versions of Gemma. Those were the different entities that we saw in episode 7. So we had that confirmed that he's actually working on the consciousness of Gemma, and she's telling him like, hey, once you finish Cold Harbor, you're basically going to be done, and they're probably going to kill you, and they're probably going to kill her. So you need to go in there and save her now. And so he's telling Helly R about Cold Harbor, and she says, we need to finish it, and then we need to go and try to save Gemma. So that's what ends up happening. But then you have, after Mark finally completes Cold Harbor, you have this big celebration scene, and you have this animatronic of Kier in the middle of the room, and Mr. Milchek comes in, and they're doing like this presentation for Mark for completing Cold Harbor, and then the fucking marching band comes in, and it's all very wild, all very surreal, but it's also all very Severance. Like, I feel like if you watch this show, you can't even be like surprised or shocked by anything that happens, because nothing really feels out of place, because we've just seen like so many wild moments and like crazy things that happen on the show, and just like so many kind of surrealist moments that nothing really feels like it's too much or too out of place. Like anytime something happens, I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna roll with it. So also in this episode, we kind of get to the conclusion of Dylan's storyline. So we learned that Dylan, his wife revealed to him that she basically been saying his any behind his back, and Dylan was upset about this and felt like basically his wife was cheating on him with himself, and so he felt some type of way about it. And then we see that his Annie actually tried to propose to his wife, and he was like, I want you to marry me like as a separate person. And his wife was just like, no, I can't do this. And so when that happened, Dylan's Annie was like, you know what? I need to go. I'm just gonna resign and kind of quit Lumen. And so he turned in his resignation to Mr. Milchek, who was not happy about it. Basically called that man a quitter to his face. And then we found out the next day that Dylan's Audi denied his resignation. And so Mr. Milchek, he tells him about it. He's like, hey, I feel like you may have an emotional reaction to this. So here, I'm going to let you read this, and then I'm going to dip out so you can kind of go over this by yourself. So basically, Dylan's Audi is telling his innie, like, first of all, fuck you for seeing my wife behind my back. But also, he was like, I think you should stay here because I almost feel like you're a better version, or not a better, but more impressive version of myself. And you're something that I can be proud of. So I feel like you should stay there. And I think he kind of convinced him with that. And so then we see Dylan when he makes his way back to the severed floor into the office. He sees everything that's happening with Helly R and Mr. Milchek, and he tries to help her out. And this man pushes a whole vending machine in front of the door to block Mr. Milchek from getting out. So I feel like Dylan has always been a real one. Like he was down for any type of scrap or battle or fight. uh, he's been like anti-Lumen, and when he saw the chance to like help Helly out and to like fuck over Mr. Milchek, he did not hesitate. So that part was very interesting. I think it was like very fitting character arc for Dylan, to say, you know what, I'm going to stay here, but I'm actually going to still help out my friends who are trying to take down Lumen. So That was a very fun scene. Just him in the vending machine, and then him at the end of the scene where Mr. Milchick finally does escape the room. Dylan standing there with the whole marching band and Helly and being like, "Yeah, fuck you, Mr. Milchick." So that was one of my favorite moments, definitely of the season so far and of the finale. So Mr. Milchick, he's stuck in his room. He can't get out. Helly R and Dylan are keeping him locked in. And then we see Mark. He's frantically going down the hallways trying to get to the black hallway that Irvin told them about that he left them the directions for. And then we cut to another scene and we have the woman with the goats. She's walking one of the goats down to Mr. Drummond. And so we get inside the room and Mr. Drummond's like, hey, we need to make another sacrifice. So basically, this goat is going to embody the spirit of Gemma. And so the woman, she's like very nervous, very concerned. She's like, I don't want to kill any more of these animals. But Mr. Drummond is telling her, we have to. This is important. And right when they're getting ready to make the sacrifice and kill the goat, they have a bullet loaded into the gun. They hear something across the hall, and Mr. Drummond goes out and he sees that it's Mark, and he's trying to get through this door. So Mr. Drummond picks up immediately on what's happening, and he punches Mark right in the face, and this leads to a brutal fight between him and Mark, and they're basically beating the shit out of each other. And Mr. Drummond gets the upper hand, and he's choking out Mark. And right when it looks like he's about to pass out, the woman comes out the room. She has the gun, and she puts it up to Mr. Drummond's head, and she's like, "No more killing." So then this leads to a fight with her and Mr. Drummond. They're beating the shit out of each other. And ultimately, Mark regains control of the gun and he tells Mr. Drummond, you're going to take me in to get my wife. So Mark is holding the gun to him, holding him hostage, takes him to the elevator. But when he switches, basically the gun ends up stabbing Mr. Drummond in the neck when Mark switches from his Audi to his Innie, and Mr. Drummond starts splurting blood everywhere, and he dies. And so Mark, he doesn't even have time to like consider what just happened. He still knows he needs to go find Gemma, so he's running down the halls looking for her, and he finally finds the Cold Harbor room. So he goes in, Gemma is there. She's doing some kind of project that the Lumen managers are telling her she should do. I guess like the last step of Cold Harbor is her being able to take apart this crib. And so Mark gets there. He tells her, hey, we need to go. Like, I'm your husband. And she ends up like just saying, okay, let's go. She takes his hand and she leaves with him, even though I'm not even sure she even recognized who Mark was at that point because she's probably like the base version of herself that's been wiped clean, so she doesn't even have any of her memories. But she trusts Mark. She grabs his hand, and they run out. And so this is kind of the culmination of the episode. We have like the lights blaring and the alarms going off, and it's very cinematic. You have these red and blue flashing lights, and of course, the cinematography on the show is always top notch. But I feel like this episode they really knocked it out of the park with the lighting and with the way that everything was shot. And so, Mark and Gemma are frantically trying to get to the elevator so that they can go back to the separate floor and then leave out of the stairwell where they'll be able to escape. And so we finally get to Mark down the end of the hallway, even though the Lumen management tried to stop them. They get down to the stairwell door, and Mark, he helps Gemma get out. And then when it's his turn to leave, he closes the door, but he doesn't go out. And you're like, oh shit, like Gemma is frantically screaming at him, like, Mark, like, let's go, like, we gotta go. And he's just looking at her. And in that moment, you can tell, like, he doesn't want to go. And this is Mark's innie because once they got off the elevator, he switched back to his innie. And his innie is, like, still conflicted about leaving with this person who, even though it's technically his wife, he doesn't really know. And so then we see Helly R. She comes down at the end of the hallway, and he's looking back at her, and it's very obvious that you have him kind of stuck in the middle, and he has to make a choice of who he wants to go with. Does his any go with the person that he fell in love with, the person that he's kind of made a life with inside the severed floor, or does he go with the person he's been told is his wife and that he loves, but he doesn't actually know and remember? So he ends up staring at her. She's screaming at him, Mark, come on, let's go. And then he just slowly backs away until he turns around and he chooses Helly R. And my jaw is just like on the floor, like, I can't believe he actually left Gemma and chose Helly R. And they like grab hands and they run back down the opposite way of the hall. And this is the final shot of the episode of the season. And I'm still just trying to like process everything because that was such a wild finale and a wild scene and just a crazy way to end the episode, but also perfect in a way because I feel like this has been kind of the theme of the whole show is them having to choose between the life that they had outside versus the life they have inside. So this was kind of the perfect encapsulation of that, where Mark had to choose, and because it was his any chose to stay with Helly R. Where like I feel like if it had been his Audi with that same choice, I feel like his Audi would have chose Gemma, and then they would have left, and Helly R would have been the one left behind. But just because of the logistics of how things worked out, his any was the one who was kind of helping the escape. And this was the thing that he told his Audi. He was like, "Hey, I don't know. Like, I don't know that person. This isn't my life. This not what I chose, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can help you." And to his credit, he actually did help get Gemma out. The problem is he just didn't go with her. So um, it's going to be interesting to see where they go in season three because now, even though Gemma is out, Mark is still in, and we don't know how Lumen is going to react to that, to her escaping. We still don't really know what their final plan was for Gemma. I know there's a lot of like theories and speculation about like what they were actually planning to do with Gemma and the process that they put her through. And we even see like in the episode when Kier's animatronic was talking and telling Mark like how important his work was and what he did. It's kind of hinting that something is bigger at play here. And I mean, we can kind of tell that this isn't the end, like whatever they're doing with Gemma, but they also didn't give us really a clear answer of what was next and what they were using this data and this process for. Or maybe I missed it, but I feel like they didn't really exactly tell us what they were going to do next. And so that's going to be something that we find out in season three. We're also going to have to see like if Mark ever is able to turn back into his Audi, or if his any just decides like, hey, I'm just going to stay in here permanently um, and try to stay with Helly R. But as we know, Helly R is a Egan, and that her Audi very much doesn't like her any, and I don't see her Audi being happy with her any choosing to stay with Mark. And so that's going to be a whole nother conflict that they will have to figure out in season two. But I do feel like we got a decent amount of answers this finale. There's still a lot of questions, though. We don't know what happened with Irving. We saw him go to the train station after Bert told him basically, we can't be together and that you need to leave, like basically for your own safety. Um, we don't know if there'll be any repercussions from Dylan for choosing to go against Mr. Milchek. And even with Mr. Milchek, we saw that moment between him and Mr. Drummond where like he basically told him to eat shit in his very eloquent way. And so I do think it's interesting that when like it came down to it, Mr. Milchek stuck. He chose to like stay with Lumen. He chose to like still enforce what he was there to enforce, and basically he didn't turn on the company, even though you could tell he's very much kind of annoyed at his station in the company, but he still remained loyal and he's still like a care loyalist. So I thought that part was interesting, and I do want to see what happens with his character next season. So I think that overall this was a very good finale. Emotionally, it just like left me in a very just like drained place, but it was very good. I went through all the different emotions this episode. I would give it like a 4.5 out of 5. It wasn't a perfect episode, but it was very good. It was a very fitting way to end the season and one of the better season finales that I've seen in a while.